Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to the Golf Strong Project. Got some fun topics to talk about today. A fun topic to talk about today that'll make some people happy, make some people mad. Most people might not really understand it, but we'll see how it goes. As always, joined by Dr. Tim Rivotto, new Dad of the Year winner. What's up, man?
Nothing. Just hanging. What's up with you?
Doing pretty much the same, man. Nothing too crazy. Got to get my new grips the next couple of days.
Oh,
The old clubs need a little new grippy to them, new feel.
you gonna do it yourself, or are you gonna go somewhere?
Got jokes? No,
It's easy.
I think that's fantastic that it's easy, but my time is always best spent in other places.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have better things to do. Yeah, not on my list of things. No, I gotta get them done. I'm uncertain what I'm gonna get on there though. I think I might upsize my grip, go with a little bit of a bigger grip.
Yeah.
I've got a mid-size right now, and I'm thinking I've tried a couple of the oversized ones, and I might
Stay standard like Golf Bride, or you go Super Stroke, or play around? What are you thinking?
No, so I've got wins right now.
Okay.
And they do make a couple different sizes. I actually liked my grips, but these are the OG grips that I had when I kind of like learned to golf. So there's like my thumb marks from where I gripped the shit out of it for so long, and it's time.
Yeah, it sounds like it's
just
time.
It never bothered me that much because it's like, yeah, they got character. I like them. They feel good in my hands, but it's an issue. So
No, you're gonna get the new ones on, and you're gonna be like, why didn't I do this sooner? 100%.
Yeah, that's what everyone tells me. But anyways, also everybody drop in some comments on here. I need to find a new carry golf bag. So everyone's favorite carry golf bag. Drop a comment because I'm shopping and it's Christmas time and my 30th birthday next Friday. So for Dirty 30, I need a new bag.
Sounds good to me. I'm biased to the Titleist Players 4. Light, easy, plenty of pockets. It's a good one.
It's like an immediate answer too. You were like, you knew exactly what it was going to be from the get.
It's a good one. The other ones I've tried, I've had an OGO bag. Those aren't bad, but the legs always get busted. And the Titleist, the legs haven't gotten busted. I've had one for 3 years.
Ooh.
Throw it around, I walk like 25 rounds, 30 rounds a year. Still good.
Still hanging in. And if you lived in Florida, you could double that.
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about that.
Or triple that or any of those things.
That would get unhealthy. It would get unhealthy.
Unhealthy. You hold your tongue. Oh, shoot. All right. So fun conversation today. So we're going to talk about genetics and if they matter, if they don't matter, the nature versus nurture debate, which everyone has had forever, which seems kind of funny because obviously they both matter. That's a clear, we'll make that statement from the get-go, that how you're brought up, the environmental factors that surround you, right? Nurture, and how you're born, what you got from the get-go, what mom and dad pass on to you, your genetics, they intermingle and together they create who you are. I think it's unfair to say which one is greater than the other, although everyone's born with a certain amount of genetic potential, and either that's nurtured or not nurtured. I think that's probably a fair place to start there. But we want to talk about this specifically as it comes to golfing, because you hear all the time, Tiger just has good genetics. That guy's just a genetic freak. Bryson's a genetic freak. These people are just, they're genetic. They're just amazing. They just have the best genetics, and that's why they're so good. I think oftentimes we overlook how much effort and practice these people have put in to be as great as they are. And the novice person or the amateur is always like, they're just gifted. They're more gifted than I am. And thus that's why they're there, which is a way too reductionist approach to genetics. So we're going to talk about it in terms of golf today, talk a little bit about, kind of how this goes, how genetics matter and roll from there. First things first, let's talk about why this is an important, maybe argument's the wrong word, Tim, but why it's an important topic to discuss. You know, why talking about genetics specifically is viable for golf and for golf trainers specifically and for the athletes. So, you know, in your mind, what kind of pops to your head immediately about why it's important for us to have this conversation?
Well, there's such a broad range, right, of genetics, of physical makeup, right, what people look like, how people move, how people operate, and when you look at how similar we all are, we're all humans are pretty, 99.9% genetically the same, right? So you'd think, oh, that can't matter too much, right? Because we're almost all the same. But there is such a wide variation of human within that little tiny 0.1%. You've got Muggsy Bogues and Manute Ball. You've got Tiger Woods and John Daly, and they're all 0.1% different or 99.9% the same. So there's such a wide range of variation in that little amount of difference that we have that it's really amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that appreciating the fact that there is so much variation is important in that regard. And we're going to discuss a little bit about what that means, well, if you were born with these genetic factors or these, what's going to make you better than the other. But in terms of why this is so important, even further than that, it's important to realize that you are not a product of one versus the other, which we kind of just discussed. You are not just on the side of, well, if you work really, 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 really hard, anything is possible, physically speaking. Or if you have the best genetics in the world, that's all that matters, right? We can't make this black and white camp of genetics and hard work, right? That's not how this works. There is a combination of those things. And I think for me, the biggest conversation or the biggest reason I like having this conversation is a lot of people think to themselves, well, my genetics are going to hinder me, or I don't have good genetics. That's the thing I will hear the most is I just don't have the genetics to do this. And I tell people all the time, yes, your genetics will hinder you at a given point. But have you even exercised your ability to get to that point? Right? So if you're looking at this big graph and your genetic ability is at the top, you're usually batting 25% of that genetic ability because you haven't put the work in to reach it. Now, that genetic ability might be lower than Tiger Woods, sure, but are you even getting to your ability? Do we even know what that looks like? So for me, this argument is very critical because I think people they hamstring themselves and then they create these self-fulfilling prophecies that they are not good enough or that their genetics hinder them. And that's why they can't accomplish what they want, which is a cop-out in a lot of ways. But I think that for me, that's one of the reasons I see with golfers specifically, where they're like, I'm just not gifted enough to do this. Not necessarily.
Yeah, I had a conversation on Instagram with a guy yesterday who was saying, if people don't develop their athleticism early, you can never get athletic. It's what you got. If you don't play sports when you're a kid and you don't figure out how to swing a bat or swing a golf club, that's all you've got. You can't do it as an adult. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It might take a little more work. It might take a little more time, but you can, as you made a great point that there might be a set ceiling based on what you're given genetically, right? Who your parents were and what you got from them. But you can always play around with that. There's always a kind of a window of ability or a window of, coordination. And that window, where you sit in that window is based on what you do with it. And most people aren't doing anything with it. They're not trying to push the envelope. They're not trying to get better or stronger or faster. So yeah, you are stuck where you're at, but you're not doing anything for it.
Well, think of the number one thing. I've lost a step.
Right.
Everyone will tell you they have lost a step. And my counter is, no, you just stopped stepping. most of the time, I think we've talked about this in here before. We probably have. And if we're beating a dead horse, hopefully you guys don't mind. But most people, if they think about a sport they played in high school, we'll even say, golf was your sport in high school, right? In season, you practiced for what, Tim, an hour and a half to 4 hours a day?
Yeah. At
Depending
least
on
an hour
the
and a half. Yeah.
At
At
least an hour
least.
and a half. So we'll say two just to be on the low end. And we'll say 5 days a week you spent 2 hours working at that craft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just 5 days a week. That's 10 hours a week of practice at golf. Okay. You go to college and you don't play golf in college, and you play, I don't know, once every month. We'll say 5 times a month. Okay. But during the week, maybe you hit the range once. So you went from 10 hours a week to, if you're lucky, 2 hours a week of practice time here. I'm not talking about playing, practice time. So 10 hours to 2 hours. Okay. And then you get a little older, and then you're like, well, I play 3 or 4 days a week, and that's about it. I don't practice anything. I don't go do anything else. So you went from all of that practice to no practice, or even all of that playing to playing once a week. So if you were playing 4 days a week in high school and then you play once a week as an adult, it makes sense that you're not doing as well. In the gym, this is more pronounced. In high school, where people are playing a sport and they train for that sport, they're in the gym 4 days a week for an hour anyways. And then they're doing their sport specific training. Then they go to college and they get older, and they're like, maybe they work out for an hour a week, 2 hours a week if they're lucky. So you see this huge downfall in the amount of work people are doing. And that all gets blamed on, well, I've lost a step. I'm not built to handle that. I'm not Tom Brady. Silly example, but, oh, well, he has great genetics. You're right. That guy also optimizes the shit out of his body. He's spending ungodly amounts of money on it, but he's investing in it. If you look at him when he got into the league, he was just a tubby piece of lard. He might have still had great genetics, but he has certainly not optimized them yet.
Right. He's probably the opposite end of the spectrum, where he's doing more now than he was previously.
100%. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And he's reaping the benefits. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why this conversation is so important, is that people need to understand that we put too many hindrances on ourselves, and we blame genetics as our cop-out tool too often. That's the reason we're not good enough. Or, oh, I can never make it on the tour because I'm just not genetically that gifted, right? That's not necessarily the case unless you have exercised every option possible to you to find that out. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how much difference, we'll talk about strength specifically. So the amount of variability that we'll get in muscle mass between people. So this is actually something that's been researched pretty well. So 80% of the total lean mass difference between people is explainable through genetic differences, which is a lot. Right. So I'll repeat that for everyone's sake so you understand. So 80% of the lean mass differences between people, so of our like lean cut up physiques, is explained by genetic only differences, not by how hard you work in the gym or any of those other things, but by your genetics, right? That's a lot. So what you're capable of having as lean muscle mass is greatly determined by genetics. So that's an important thing for people to understand. Now, height and weight play a role in all of that, but the same thing occurs with muscle fiber. So we can talk about that quick. So Tim, what are our muscle fiber types?
Yeah, so we've got our
know?
Right. So in the most simple terms, we've got type 1 and type 2, right? So type 1 is our more endurance focused fibers, right? They use oxygen slow. They help, think marathon runners. It helps that muscle can go all day. Just keep a steady pace all day. It can't generate as much force, can't generate as much speed, but it can go all day. And then we've got our type 2, where that's our power, forceful fiber. So that can generate speed, that can generate a ton of force, and think our power lifters or shot putters or offensive linemen in football. Those are people that are generating a ton of force in a really small amount of time. Now you do tire out a little quicker, or a lot quicker, but you can produce a ton more force.
Yes. And mind you, genetically speaking, a lot of that is genetically determined, or a great percentage of that is genetically determined, like how much type 2 versus how much type 1 you have. And there seems to be a little bit of, I don't want to call it crossover depending on what you do, but there is some, as you get older or as you optimize a certain kind of, say you're doing power, you can optimize or grow, so to speak, the type 2 fibers you have.
Right.
But if you are predominantly more type 1 fibers, that doesn't help you a whole lot. Help you a little bit, but I mean, that's why you see, there's no 350-pound power lifters running marathons.
Right.
They all look pretty similar, right? There is some genetic predisposition to doing some of those things. No different than if we look at any sport, if you are, an NFL lineman, or if you're a cornerback, or if you're a quarterback, they look for very specific characteristics that are essentially genetically determined. At the end of the day, if you're 7 feet tall, you just got the lucky end of the stick that you're probably going to be able to go play basketball. Doesn't mean you're coordinated, but you've already been given the gift of being 7 feet tall. Right. If you're a quarterback and you're 6'6", you're probably going to get the nod over the guy that's 5'8". If you are naturally a bigger athlete and you can just produce more force by doing nothing, you're probably going to get the nod over somebody who's a little bit thinner but can run for 17 years.
Right. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you don't see many, 6'6" to 7 foot tall marathon runners or, 800-meter distance runners. They all look pretty much the same, right? They're, 5'5" to 5'10". They're really skinny, lean. There's a reason why people look similar in sports, right? They're at 80% of the muscle that they're born with and not stuck with, but that you've got to work with. You've got a little wiggle room on either side, right? You could be a power lifter, run a little bit more, and develop a little bit more type 1 fiber, probably, right? You could also be a marathon runner who does some heavy squats and deadlifts and does some work to get a little bit more type 2 fiber. But you're going to be predisposed towards one of those areas.
Well, and that somewhat leads into the really next conversation, which is muscle growth or hypertrophy and strength and all of those kind of things, right? Because that's the one thing people are always like, whenever you look at anything. So we'll use Bryson as an example right now, because he's like the biggest quote unquote guy in the game, where he's gained all this muscle and he's gotten really, really big and all this stuff, right? Well, what he does might not be good for you. And the reason for that is partially based on genetics. Certainly, if anybody goes and works out, changes are going to occur. But all of the research that we have shows that if you put everybody on the same program, 100 people all on the same program, there'll be people that are like these big responders. Like we'll call Bryson a bigger. So say we have, program X, and Bryson does that program and gets big and jacked like he has, or he's gotten bigger, he's gotten more muscular, right? So he is like what we'd call like a super responder, whatever you want to call him. Then it's almost like a bell curve. So there's people on that end. And then most people kind of fall in the middle where they do well. And then on the bottom, there's people that don't really respond at all. They might get stronger, but they don't have a bunch of bigger muscles. Their strength might not be as good as Bryson's, so it looks kind of funny. And so you go, okay, well, that's because he's super genetically gifted, right? Or that's because he's whatever. Well, I could then do program Y, which is a totally different program. And maybe Bryson's on the other end of the spectrum. Maybe he doesn't respond as well to that program. That's where some genetic things come into play. Some people respond better to certain programming, while other people don't respond as well to that programming. Some people don't respond to any programming well. They have a lot of trouble gaining muscle because of, unfortunately, their genetic makeup, and mom and dad didn't happen to pass on good stuff. But there is a difference in how people build muscle based on the type of programming they're doing. It's not necessarily that this program for Bryson is going to transfer to you. You might have completely different genetics, which is very likely relative to him. Now, if you're built similar to him, if you look similar to him, yeah, maybe it'll work. but that's few and far between.
Right. And that's where you see, the guys that are big and jacked on Instagram saying, I'm big and jacked. Do my program and you'll get big and jacked. Not necessarily, right? Everyone's got the different makeup. And, one guy that says this a lot online, he's a little creepy for me, but Brett Contreras, he's made a name for himself as the glute guy.
Booty.
So he helps the women, build that big butt that they want. He talks about it all the time. Some of his clients, he gives a certain exercise and they respond really well to like 3 sets of 15 reps. Other people, he's given them 5 sets of 5 because they respond well to that. So there's no right or wrong here. It's all, really what you have to do to find out what works for you is try stuff, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's 100% the truth. And that gets to the point of training and what people are doing for training. That's really where this all kind of wraps itself back around to, is that if you are someone who's looking for a golf program, you want to get stronger. It doesn't matter if you're a golfer or whoever. You just want to get stronger. You want to get bigger muscles. You want to be ripped. You want to look like all these people on Instagram, which you shouldn't want to do that. But we'll leave the psychology discussion for a different date. That's coming up in a few weeks, as a matter of fact. We've got a sports psychologist coming on here. It's going to be awesome. So peep that in a few weeks.
Can't wait.
Anyways, back to where we were. So when it comes to training, to Tim's point that he just made, everyone is a little bit different. You are going to have things that you do better with. Some people can do a set of 15 to failure. That's all they do. Or a set of 10 to failure, or a set of 8 to failure. Oh, I can't remember the guy's name. Mike Metzger or shoot. Dude back in the day who did only sets to failure, like single set to failure. And he was yoked, but he had like a bajillion heart issues and all that kind of stuff. But for him, that training really worked. And he had like this specialty program, he called it. I can't remember what it was. But anyways, then you have other people who are in a different camp entirely. Right? We have general guidelines that are like, okay, if you want to get strong, we function in the 1 to 6 rep range. If you're looking for more muscular endurance, maybe we're looking at higher than 12 rep range. So we have these numbers that we generally use, and that is true, right? I can't really test your actual strength at 20 reps. I just know your 20 rep strength, which is really more your endurance of your muscle more than your absolute strength. Those things we understand. Our point to this is that you may be a golfer looking to get into a strength program, and lower sets or you function perfectly well with. You could do 2 or 3 sets of 10 and you do great. But the guy you work out with can do 2 or 3 sets of 10 and gets no response. Or they have to do 4 sets or 6 sets or whatever it ends up being. They just don't respond as well as you do. And age plays a role there. Younger people just respond better to training than older people. That's kind of just how that works. But that's why having a coach is important.
It is. And you can respond better as an older adult if you start things younger, right? So if you've got 10, 20 years of training history where you were working out, you're 50 and you've been working out since you were 20, you're going to get better results than someone who just started at 45 or just started at 50. So it can be frustrating, right? To work hard for 2 years even and not see much difference, but it's all putting sand in the bag. Someone described it to me one day as, some days you have a shovel, you're digging a hole. Some days you have a shovel. Some days you have a spoon. And, it's just, you're digging. So whatever you got for the day, that's what you got to dig with.
Yeah, that's the truth. And that gets us to a little bit of the point, which we'll talk about another podcast. We're talking about a lot of different podcasts right now where we talk about autoregulation and we talk about when you're tired, what to do, when you feel good, what to do, and how to optimize those days and what have you. But when it comes to, again, having a coach, they're able to find what suits you best, what fits you, what doesn't fit you, what you respond best to, what you don't respond best to. Some people respond to training. Actually, that's the whole point of this conversation, is everyone responds to training differently. You can put them into different groups, but different training protocols are going to result in different things for different people. And finding what that looks like for yourself across time is really helpful. If you're a big guy, if you're 6'4" and you're naturally just like 240, broad shoulders, you just have this kind of body type, I'm going to train you differently than my 5'8" slender endurance runner. Totally. Right? We may do similar things, but you're going to respond to training totally differently. And so it's important that for people listening to this, that your coach or anything that you're doing for training is aimed at what you respond best to. Well, Tim, how do we figure that out? That's great, but what does it take for people to figure out what's best for them?
I mean, it's really trial and error. I mean, you could go out and get some genetic testing. It's pretty available and pretty affordable nowadays, right? It's probably a couple $100. You could go give some blood, send it to a lab. They could tell you what your genes look like. But there's just still so much variation there, and we don't know much about it, that unless you are like Tiger Woods at the top of your game trying to squeeze out that last little bit that you could get better, you really just have to try a bunch of stuff. Maybe you run your coach gives you a program for 8 weeks, you try it out and you feel like trash. Okay. So we know that your body doesn't handle that very well. So let's try something else. Okay. Let's run that for another 8 weeks or so. Okay. You felt better doing that. Cool. But now maybe you're feeling slower, or maybe you're, I don't know, feeling stiffer. Okay. Let's make a small tweak now, and then try to find that perfect blend. It's not a clean process. It's really trial and error. That's all we got.
Yeah, 100%. Now, it's the important thing that Tim just brought up is the fact that you have to spend time on doing those things. It's not just, I did these workouts for a week and I didn't like them. That doesn't tell us anything. That was my point I made earlier, when a lot of people are like, I just don't have the genetics to do that, so I'm not going to bother with it. Well, you haven't even tried to get there. We haven't even tried to find the trial and error necessary to find out what we have. So unless you've done like 4 months of hard training, good training that's been designed for you, you don't really know a whole lot about how you train. Because we know that people, especially the first, month or so of training, we have all of these neural factors determining our response. So in our first month, everybody gets stronger. Everybody, because the brain gets better at producing force, right? So that doesn't tell us a whole lot about what you respond best to. We have to wait a little longer. And then after 2 months, we're like, hey, how are you doing? I feel pretty good. Tim was just saying 8 weeks of this program. How are you doing? Oh man, I'm doing great. I'm doing this. Okay. What tweaks can we make? What can we do here? You have to put in the time to know where you are. And then even after 3 months of training, you're going to make some changes. Maybe you're like, hey, this didn't work. Let's try something different. All right, cool. Let's try something different. The benefits of working out far outweigh cognitive capacity, strength of bones, mental capacity, decreasing mortality significantly. Working out is always going to be the right option. Optimizing it is going to take time, and that takes somebody being with you, trying to guide that path.
Correct. And let me ask you a question then. So we're two different makeups, right? I'm 5'9", 155, 160.
Yeah, we're
and an endurance runner, right? What are your numbers?
I'm 6'3", 210, and I like to sprint and pick up heavy things.
Right. So we're different. Right now, I'm trying to get the most speed, strength, power out of my body, right? Because I could go run 10 miles right now and be fine. But yeah, I know. I'm sorry if that pains you.
I'm sorry, I choked. Oh, that's terrible. Really, 10 miles? You could just go run 10 miles right now?
Oh yeah, I did that one year. It was such a bad idea. Amara wanted me to do a half marathon with her, and I just totally bagged the training. I was just like being lazy, and I went out and ran the half marathon with her. but I paid for it for about a week, but could still do it.
That's awful.
Right?
Never. Just never. Yeah, Christy and I planned on doing a 10K last year, 2020, and they canceled it because of Rona. So I'd done all this training. So my goal was to deadlift 6 and run the 10K.
Oof.
And they canceled the 10K, which was great because I just the training was so brutal for that.
It is. It can. And so for me, what I'm trying to get to a 2 body weight deadlift. Right. So I'm up to 280s. My target number is 310. I want to be able to deadlift 310. I've been working on it for a year and a half. Right. So am I wasting my time trying to do that? Trying to get the most out of what I've got?
No.
Yeah.
100% no. And to that end, what is one of our biggest correlates of club head speed?
Strength.
Lower body strength.
Yep.
The stronger we can make your lower body, the faster you can produce club head speed. So in the game of golf, yes, it does not necessarily benefit you to be a 10K runner unless you like run and play golf. There's a new sport.
Speed golf.
Speed golf. Somebody just set the new world record in that, didn't they? Like the Guinness record of like fastest birdie.
I think so. That was a 4-man team though. So that's like someone hit the drive, someone hit the second shot, but Wako Neiman, or I forget how you say his first name, the Colombian kid, he just played a round of golf in, I think, just over 2 hours. He was doing a little jog in between.
Dude, that is a jog. I'm exhausted thinking about that. But anyways, back to our point. The fact of the matter is that Tim is a golfer. He wants to play golf, and he wants to play golf better. Specifically, he wants to be able to hit the ball further without as much effort. Leg strength plays a huge role in that. Now, for Tim and me, we have different ceilings when it comes to how much strength we can produce force-wise, right? Like back squatting to me is like the easiest thing in the world. I think it's fun. Like I've always had really strong legs. I've always had a giant ass and big legs, and I can just squat. I've been able to squat heavy since I was little. Like it was never, I can remember being in 8th grade and I could squat 315 for repetitions, which was ridiculous.
That's a dream. That's a dream.
Right. It was ridiculous, right? I could never run distances. I never liked running distances. I liked sprinting, 20 yards, 50 meters and under. That's it. I don't want to go any further than that, right? So for me, it's different to produce club head speed versus Tim. It's different for me to do that. Now, the other part to remember about this is that golf is not determined by just how strong your legs are. Our point to you is that leg strength is one of our biggest correlates to a better club head speed. How much force you can put into the ground. So Tim is a good golfer. His goal is to improve how much force he can put into the ground. Deadlifting helps with that. Squatting helps with that. He may not be designed that way, but he's trying to find whatever his genetic ceiling is to do that. And that could take years. It'll never happen because no one ever reaches their genetic potential, but he's damn well going to try.
That's it. And you may have to rely on other things like technique and things like that, which is a different conversation. Yes. But, you know, if let's just say, I'm not saying this is a problem for you, but let's just say someone like yourself, who's more of a sprinter, power, maybe you get more tired on the back nine, right? You get to the back nine and your legs are dead. And you're like, oh man, I got to, you know, especially walking and carrying your bag. All right, well, maybe you've got to focus a little more on your endurance, put a little more training on that side of things. And it just speaks to the benefits of having a coach, a professional that's going to help you through that process. They're going to help you realize you probably know what you are, right? You probably know if you're a sprinter or a marathon runner, but how you get the most out of your body is going to be something that you need help with.
Yeah, 100%. Because a lot of people, I mean, most people, let's be very honest, are carrying around extra weight.
Sure.
You know, we tend to deal with very few people that need to put on weight. I've had one client. That's not true. 2 clients in 10 years that really needed to put on weight. Yeah. I mean, that's just because of the clientele I've dealt with. 2 people had to gain weight. One of them damn well can't gain weight. Could eat bonbons at every meal. Genetically speaking, there you go, Tim.
That's me.
Cannot gain weight. Could eat till whatever they wanted. Ice cream, you name it. They won't gain weight. But most people are not typically in that camp. So in order to optimize your body, we have to find what's a good weight for you. We have to see what that is. And then we have to start training around those things. You know, maybe you're great at responding to power work, or maybe strength work for you can be limited. 20-minute workouts, 30-minute workouts, and you're smoked. Okay, that's fine. We'll adjust and adapt. But it's going to take months to figure that out. Years, to be totally honest.
Right. Really years. Yeah. We were talking about a couple of studies before this call, trying to get our topics together and things. And a lot of the research is on like 12-week programs. So 3 months, or 16 weeks, 4 months. But really we're talking on a multi-year time span. You're going to see the most results when you're older. And you do see that in sport, right? You see marathon runners, the best marathon runners typically are in their mid-30s. You get people at the top of their sport, usually around 30, unless it's a particularly violent sport where you're just abusing your body and getting injured. So you see it in golfers. I mean, putting is one thing where having good eyesight and being younger helps you a little more. But as far as technique and consistency goes, you see guys on Champions Tour still hitting the ball just as far as they used to, and some of them have transformed their bodies now because they've started doing things like getting in the gym, working out for the last maybe 5 years or so. And so there's always work to be done there. It's a long time span here.
100%. I mean, guys like Greg Norman who have just gotten cut up.
Yeah, he looks better than ever now.
Yeah. So I'm not claiming that he does this, but a point we do need to make. So in terms of us building muscle, obviously how big we are, height, the size of our frame makes a difference. How many muscle fibers we're born with matters. How we respond to training, which we've just talked about. Some people respond better to different kinds. The other thing is performance enhancing drugs, PEDs, steroids, things like that. That fully changes how your body can build muscle. So we're all on the same page. Right. Most of the people, if you're looking at these jacked Instagram models and all this stuff, men specifically, oftentimes there is some kind of performance use. I'm not saying everybody, because I don't think that's a fair thing to say. Some of them are just freaks, right? They're just freaks, right? Like if you go to these bodybuilding shows, you can clearly tell who the genetic freaks are, right? Like you see everybody on stage and they all essentially did the same working out. They all trained similarly, but you look at them and you go, yeah, that's just, pumping iron is a great example.
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger just had different genetics. And that's with steroid use, obviously, but he looked different than everybody else, right? That's just kind of the way it is. So you can always tell where that stuff comes to be, but steroids plays a humongous role in muscle size change.
Huge. I mean, you're playing with your hormones. Yeah, you're playing with your hormones. Anytime you do that, and just because you stop too, you can reap the benefits for years and years afterwards. It's huge.
Mind you, we're not advocating for steroid use, but it's not uncommon.
Yeah, and you have to talk about it. That is one of the tried and true ways to significantly increase your muscle mass, no matter what your genetics are.
100%. 100%. And you'll see the problem now that we're seeing is that you've got like 14-year-old kids juicing.
Yeah. Did you see that Gymshark stuff? A bunch of Gymshark models.
That are,
14 to 18 modeling their clothing, and they're jacked and they look ridiculous, and they're all on crazy amounts of testosterone.
Yeah. Which again is funny because in terms of testosterone use in your body, there's only so much you can use.
Yeah. And it's probably the highest when you're at that age, right?
I think it peaks at 26.
Okay. So they're climbing.
Like peaks. Like they're on their way up, right? Because they're hitting puberty now. So there's all of that. But there's so many factors to that. But to your point, you've got kids taking, they're juicing and they're kids. They're puppies.
Yeah.
Not to everybody listening. If you want to go get big and jacked and you want to take steroids, this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Do whatever you want. I will not tell you can't go do things. I would say that you should look up repercussions of such things.
Correct.
And make those decisions on your own. But if you look at like old school bodybuilders currently today, not many of them look fantastic.
No, no. And they're doing all sorts of weird stuff. So I would seriously recommend, if that's something you're thinking about, especially if you're an older guy, I would go to the doctor. You can get testosterone replacement therapy today. You can go to your doctor
all
and
the
say, "Hey,
time.
listen, I'm really trying to maximize my health. I want to get bigger, stronger, feel better." And they'll give you a safe amount that you can do long term, not going to damage anything. Um, so there are ways to do it now. You don't have to go,
There's
buy it on
intelligent
the
ways
black
to do
market.
it. Yeah,
Correct.
you don't got to go to the local Golds and talk to Johnny out back and
Right.
be like, "Hey, you got my stuff?" Like, this isn't heroin, everybody.
Right. And I do want
Anyways,
to emphasize too, everyone wants to be big and jacked, right? Or a lot of people do. Or they want to lose fat, they want to look good, they want to look shredded.
right.
You can increase your strength and get way stronger and still look the exact same. It's not all about what you look like. You can put in work for 2, 3 years, get way stronger, and pretty much look the same. There are still serious health benefits to just getting stronger.
Yes, that is 100% the best statement of this podcast. That is so true. Well, so for anybody on here that's ever watched Olympic lifting, like weightlifting in the Olympics, when you look at these people lift weights outside of the really, really thin, like the 130-pound lifters, 120-pound lifters who are usually a little more cut up, nobody looks big
No.
or like jacked. Like some of them look plubby. Like you're like, that guy
Yeah.
kind of looks fat, but they just snatched 450 pounds. Like, oh, okay, that's insanity, right? So it's John Daly, great example.
Mm-hmm.
As much as everyone hates on him for being quote unquote unhealthy or, oh, he's not fit, he's not this, that guy is an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
He may not look it, but he is strong. He is extremely mobile, extremely,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is a genetic gift. Let's all be very honest about that. Like his body just does things other people's bodies don't do.
Yeah.
Right.
And he still does it in spite of his unhealthy lifestyle, right? So he's
Correct.
one where he's got great genetics. He's maybe not doing all he can to optimize them, but it doesn't matter. He's
Nor does he care.
right. No, really doesn't. He's living his
Grip and
best life
sip,
no matter
grip
what.
and sip. Now, Tiger, on the other hand, sitting in his press conference the other day, just yoked.
Yep.
Just like, what's up, biceps? Like, can't use my leg. Somebody show me the curl machine.
Arm farm.
He was just, did he look puffy to you?
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Little puffy. That
He
poor
wasn't as,
bastard.
I know. I mean, he basically has one good leg, one leg that's, it seems like healed now, but still not great. And then you throw in all the back stuff too, and it's like, ugh, that poor guy.
Yeah, just gone through the ringer. And God knows, especially what we know today about, we just had a herniated disc conversation not that long ago. God knows what decisions they would make today about his back surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
If they were necessary, if they weren't.
And the amount he practiced. I mean, if you read his biography, when he was at Stanford, he had 24/7 access to the practice facilities, and he was known on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, when people are out drinking, partying until 3, 4 a.m. He was in the training facility banging balls. I mean, he was hitting thousands and thousands of balls every single day.
Yeah.
So yes, he's probably has really great genetics. He obviously has the mental training that his dad put him through and all that. But he put in a ton of work. So he's probably gotten pretty close to his ceiling, closer than any of us probably have.
Very important point we need to make right now. Most people say his back injuries occurred because of working out and swinging too fast. Those are the two things you hear people say all the time. They say that about Bryson right now too. Eventually his back's going to just break because of that. I disagree with both of those statements. Tissues break down when the capacity of that tissue is exceeded, which is typically due to fatigue more often than not. Tim just made the point about Tiger practicing incessantly. Eventually the body has to have a break.
Has to.
Right. Most people, if they go out right now and they normally play once a week and they walk 18 holes once a week, if all they did was do that 2 more times in a week, they'd be sore. Right? If most people come into the clinic, especially if we see them first thing, and we have them do 5 sit-to-stands, and they're like, oh my gosh, like my legs were sore for like 4 days. I'm like, yeah, because you don't do any of these things, right? That's fatigue setting in. So when you think about someone playing golf and they are banging thousands of balls, thousands per week, it makes sense that things break down. To be honest, the fact that he started working out probably mitigated worse issues from happening later on. Like his recoveries were probably 3 times faster because generally speaking, he was much stronger than he would have been.
Agreed.
We know that to be a fact in every other sport.
Agreed. And you have to talk about he was doing training with Navy SEALs and stuff. So he was sleep deprived. He was doing crazy fatiguing workouts,
Yes.
Running in sand, getting in cold water, not sleeping. Yes. I mean, so all of that goes into it. It's not just that he was swinging out of his shoes and, posting around his front leg and putting a ton of stress on his back. Probably contributed, but there's a lot more to the story there.
Yeah, it's just not. We need to have a whole podcast about that myth because we've talked about back injuries significantly on here. It's just not true. It's just not. Yes, does speed play a role? Sure. Specifically, if you don't have the strength to handle the speed. Right. Tiger had the strength to handle the speed of his swing without question. Right. I would argue that almost all of the breakdown of his swing came from fatigue. And probably that he changed his swing several times.
Right.
So not only did he fatigue, or not only did he play a lot, he also played a lot, then started changing aspects of his swing, and then produced lots of force in those different ways. That probably contributed. But there's so much nuance to it that it's the point of it all is that it's not just the fact that he was big and strong.
Right. And you think about the average golfer, they're probably working a desk job, right? They're your accountant, your lawyer, your whoever. You're working. You're maybe not working out, and then you go out once a week and swing out of your shoes. Your capacity is really low. You're not doing anything all week, and then you're asking your body to do a whole heck of a lot on your Saturday round. I mean, that's not bad genetics. That's not being prepared for what you're trying to do with your body.
It's just not being smart. Well, it's like people that don't play pickup basketball. And then out of nowhere, let's go play. And they blow a heel cord or something.
Right.
How'd that happen? What do you mean how'd that happen? You don't train for it. It's not rocket science.
Right. Exactly.
Like if I went and ran a 10K right now, I would hurt for, I don't even want to know how long. Like we did a 5K on Thanksgiving, which I'd been running like a mile and a half or 2 miles with our dog at a leisure pace. And we ran that 5K and I tried to keep it at a simple pace. I was looking at all the homes oh, I like that house. I could see us in something like that someday. And I'm getting to the end of it and I'm just damn it. Who invented running? It's brutal. Meanwhile, guys like you are just flying by me as if it's just the easiest, gazelles. Just
cruising.
What is cruising. Sick in the head.
We call people like you pedestrians. You're going at a pedestrian pace.
Oh, pedestrians, kind. I looked like I was walking. I think I don't know what I did it in. I got to look at my Apple Watch. It was 24 minutes or something.
It's not bad.
Oh my God. It was brutal. Not my fastest ever, but my mile time, that's always been fast.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing after that. Because I finished my mile and I just die for the rest of the day. Genetics.
They matter.
They matter. So there's a great quote from a guy named Greg Nuckols, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about in this podcast are from an article that he wrote, which we'll put in the podcast description. But one of the things he says is, you never know how good of a hand you were dealt until you play it with the expectation that it's a good hand. That's a fantastic quote. Completely true. You don't know how good your hand is that you've been dealt genetically until you play expecting it to be a good hand. So that was to the point that we made earlier, where if your ceiling is at the top of that graph or in the middle of the graph, are you trying to get there? And do you expect it to be really high? Until you make the expectation that it's much higher than you are now, you will never achieve beyond mediocrity. And to blame your genetics or to blame your environment isn't really going to cut it. We know, like Tim just talked about, people as they age can still get very good at things, no matter what it is, no matter what the motor task is. Sure, it might not be as easy. We're not as plastic as we are when we're teenagers, physically speaking and mentally speaking, but you can still get very good at things. I know lots of people who did nothing their whole lives, picked up golf and became excellent golfers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a motor skill and a hard motor skill. Maybe they were genetically gifted and they have great hand-eye and good feel. Maybe they just went to the range, worked hard and what have you, but they picked it up, they got good at it, and they tried to find out how good they could be, regardless of what the limit their genetics placed on them.
I think that's a great point to end on. I don't know if I can top it. Expectation matters and hard work matters. That's it.
And pick better parents.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Maybe in the future we could pick our parents.
Oh, I don't want to get into that topic. It'll drive me nuts. People start picking stuff. It's one of those things I don't do. I don't play God.
I don't blame you. I don't either.
I don't mess with that kind of stuff. It's just, that's fire and that burn you. This just became like a church. I just got like church. I don't know what just happened.
I know that the lighting, it got dark over there. You've got a little light behind your head. It's like, oh.
I got nothing. I tried turning on my little. Oh shoot! I tried turning on my little Loom cube and it disconnected for some reason. So I was like, yeah, it's all right. Got like a little halo around me. Works out.
It was
great.
fitting. It was fitting.
Yeah, you gotta make it work. So we'll wrap it up. Listen, anyone listening to this of our, I don't know how many of our listeners we have at this point. Hopefully 55,000.
I think so.
Got to be close. If you are unsure about what to do for training, drop a comment, shoot us a DM, jackson.golfstrong, tim.golfstrong on Instagram. Shoot us a message. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not really sure what fits me. Let's talk about it. Let's figure those things out. Let's fix them. And I suppose we could probably talk about it on here. So as you can tell, Tim and I have like combined forces. We've kind of become Voltron here.
I love it. I love it.
That's a phenomenal name. Anyways,
that's what we should have named it. Voltron.
God. We can have a program called Voltron.
There you go. First program out, Voltron.
But anyways, we've kind of combined forces. So Golfstrong's going to be coming out, and you're going to see more kind of a joint effort from Tim and I talking about the golf world and how we're basically breaking it from the bonds of bad performance information.
Trying.
Doing our best.
We're going to do it. We are going to do it. It's going to take hard work, but we are going to do it.
We are Voltron. I got to get off this podcast. All right, everybody.